evening. We appreciate each and every one of you all. I am Lee Condall, your moderator for this evening. We're going to give the panel a chance to introduce themselves, and we would really appreciate it, beginning with you, Ms. Bagwell, on this evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Teresa Bagwell. I'm the superintendent of St. Mary Parish Schools. In the audience, I also have our incoming assistant superintendent, Dr. Rachel Sanders, and our board president, Mr. Kenneth Alfred.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tammy Moore, and I'm here representing South Louisiana Community College, and I'm also a school board member representing District 2. I have here with me this evening Ms. Ann Poole, who is our reentry coordinator for the parish, and she's also housed at our SLCC campus in Morgan City.
Good evening. I'm Ms. Kathy Nettles. I'm representing St. Mary Community Action Agency. I have family service here with me, Marielle, Sue, and Bree. We want you to take a look at our table over there. If you have 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, we're registering children tonight. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla Vappy. I am the Administrative Director of Behavioral Health Services at Tesh Action Clinic and also the Director of School-Based Health Centers.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharice Picard, the Executive Director of Shea Hope. We're the Domestic Violence Program for St. Mary Parish. We have an emergency shelter in Franklin, as well as provide domestic violence services throughout the whole parish.
Good evening. I don't think I have to introduce myself, but I am Beverly DiMaggio. I'm the Executive Director for the Council on Aging, and I have some of my staff back there in the back, but I don't think they want me to introduce them. They're on the back row, so that tells me something. We take care of everybody in St. Mary Parish, all of St. Mary Parish, 860 miles, okay, give or take a few miles, and anyone over 60 that ask for our services, we try to give them. We are the ones that deliver the home delivered meals, homemaker services, sitter, and respite. And right now, we're having to battle with keeping the spirits up.
Good evening. I'm Travis Darnell. I am a therapist for 360 Mental Health out of New Iberia, a city councilman here in Patterson, and I am also a social studies teacher at Patterson High School.
Good evening. My name is Amber Cavalier, and I am also a licensed professional counselor and licensed addiction counselor, and I've been practicing in the community for 15 years.
Okay, as we begin with this evening questions, the very first question is to you, Ms. Bagwell, school resource, and these are questions that were sent in by people of the parish. And the very first one on this evening, with everything going on, do you have anything in place to protect bus operators while they're transporting students to school? Isn't that something? All right.
Well, certainly our bus operators are some of the best people that a child sees, because they're the first people they see in the morning, and they're the last people they see when they go home. Mm-hmm. So they're critical in the overall structure of our district. But to say what we have in place for bus drivers, we have security cameras on all of our buses, which were recently upgraded this year. So those are kind of the reactive in many cases, because if an incident happens, we pull the camera to see exactly what transpired. On the proactive side, the bus drivers are required to go through hours and hours of training. Those trainings should also be elaborated on to include CPI training and things that are done to respond to students who are in crisis. Another thing that we have in place is when something transpires over the night, we find out that something has occurred between a group of students or there's a concern about a student in particular, we work with our school resource officers and partner with the sheriff's department and the local municipal police departments to monitor bus stops and to also keep the bus driver informed if there is an issue, so that when they go to maybe a certain bus stop or encounter a certain student that we might be concerned about, that they know how to respond in that situation.
Thank you. Appreciate your answer on this evening. For social service on this evening, what organized work have you directed toward the betterment of social conditions in the community, schools, etc.? Anyone from the social side?
Speaking on behalf of St. Mary Community Action Agency, we have what is called a community resource guide, and when our children are registered for school, we avail them to the different partnerships that we have inside our community. We partner with the Board of Education, we partner with community partners like churches, organizations, sororities, fraternities. And these are the people who are actively involved in your community. So we get together with them to find out what the needs are in the community. We assess those needs. We also have different parts of our agency, such as transportation for those people who may be elderly, those people who may be on medical problems or situations who need transportation backwards and forward. We offer LIHEAP, which is a part of our utility services to help with your water bills, gas bills, electricity. Some people are in need of housing. We also help with housing. So we partner with different people in our community also to help with these.
I'd like to
Yes,
add to that.
Mm-hmm.
So Tesh Action Clinic follows a model which is called patient medical home model. And what that means is we are trying to care for all of the needs of a patient, and not just the medical needs, not just the mental health needs, but all of those things that are referred to as social determinants of health. And so we have patient navigators, we have community outreach staff, we have care managers that reach out to agencies like Community Action. So when we have a patient that is in need of housing, or if they're experiencing food insecurity, or if they are in need of shelter, we often call on Shea Hope to link those patients with the services they need. And I think what's important about that is that in a small community like ours, St. Mary Parish is a small rural parish with very, very limited resources. Everyone at this table have to rely on each other. We have to reach out to each other to address those greater social needs outside of just medicine and mental health. Anyway.
At Shea Hope, we make it our business to reach out to our law enforcement, our hospitals, our school systems, so that we can educate individuals on the services Shea Hope provides and how we can help them. We like to look at ourselves as a tool and make sure that all of their needs are met that we can need. So partnering with law enforcement, going over the services that Shea Hope can provide, and having our shelter there is how we get that word out and how we're here with the community.
At 360 Mental Health, the primary service that we provide for our patients are counseling and therapy. And what we do is every year we try to get all of our literature out to the local schools here in the community. And I think the therapists at our organization, we do a fantastic job, with the permission of the parents, because we have to have that because of confidentiality. But we also reach out to the teachers and other people who are working with the kids who we counsel to make sure that that we're counseling the whole person, not just that child, because with counseling, you have to have the parents involved, you have to have the teachers involved, and everybody who is an intricate part of that person's life in order to get change. So that's what we do. We kind of focus on the therapy side of things, but we like to include everybody who is a part of that individual's life.
I just kind of have a repeat of some of the things that they were saying with TESH Action Clinic and Community Action. We do the same. We have case managers who work on a whole perspective of what part of a person's life can we help them to meet their recovery goals, whether that's a referral out, whether that's another agency, whether that's using someone in the community. I know that often the school systems reach out to us too. They invite us. When they had My Ascension, we came out. So anything in the school systems, we try to attend, make sure people have access to the resources. So as far as social supports in the community, sometimes it's just a lack of awareness of what is available. They talked about LAHEAP. Most people don't know that that exists or what things exist, or some forms or some things you need to get assistance are right there on the internet, and people don't know how to access that, or helping people access that. So having case managers or somebody just to walk people through that, even though technology's been around, sometimes it is challenging or finding that. Just making an appointment on the DMV website, because we can't go in person anymore, has been troublesome for people just getting an ID and doing that. So as far as social supports, I think we have a lot of agencies in our area that have really been good about doing those referrals and working together, just like you said, Ms. Carla, being willing to refer and work within each other.
Are you all willing to bring those information, pass out those information to different ministries in the areas as well? Okay.
Okay, I wanted to add, as an education institution, we also offer social services. Housed on our campus, we have the Louisiana Investment Office, Workforce Investment. A lot of people may know it as the Unemployment Office, but they do a lot of service. They offer a lot of services in that building, in that office, such as resume writing. They help people find jobs. They help them to decide if college is the right program for them, or other programs and services that they are aware of. They share that information. So they're there as a resource. We also have the re-entry program, again, located on our campus. Ms. Ann Poole and her team work diligently with the probation and parole officers and all of the different industry partners to help re-entering citizens find jobs, get health care, and all of the needs that that need to be addressed in reference to them having a quality of life once they enter back into society. So we do offer that service as well. In addition, we also have the Morgan City Youth Center is located on the SLCC campus in Morgan City, and this program is a program that's designed to address the youth in the area. These students come Monday through Thursday. They work on life skills. They learn how to cook. They learn how to garden and several other things. But that's a program that's actually a social service to the community, and it has a very high success rate. In addition to that, we're a comprehensive community college, and the goal and our mission is to provide people with training opportunities so that they can earn a sustainable wage and provide for their families. We pride ourselves on being in the business of helping business and industry as a whole, bringing economic development to the community and to the parish. And if you see anything that I put out, I always say that we are in it to change lives and create futures.
Thank you all so much. As we continue on tonight, question, mental health question: what declares a person mentally unstable?
So there is a set of diagnoses that are gathered together in the DSM-5. When someone believes that they or a family member or friend is experiencing some sort of mental instability, it is important to seek out the care of a licensed professional And there will be a battery of assessments and evaluations. And that involves, in addition to getting the basic demographic information, a counselor is going to want to know about that person's history, their exposure to traumatic events, their family history, if there is psychiatric conditions within the family history. A counselor is going to want to know if there is a history of substance use and abuse with themselves or with their family. They will want to know what is the dynamic of the living situation for children. They will want to know the dynamics with the parents, foster parents or caregivers, and look for symptomology that is going to lead them to a particular diagnosis. This is for licensed professionals to do. I am a mental health first aid trainer, and I did leave some information at the table so that if anyone is interested in mental health first aid training, and I can talk about that later. One of the things that I talk about is removing the psychological language from general conversation. We often, in our discussion of people, will use terms like, well, I know they're bipolar, or you know they're schizophrenic, or whatever. And that's not appropriate for lay people to do that, because you're not licensed. I'm not a licensed professional. And so we are trying to educate people about identifying symptomology so that people may be fearful, people may be exhibiting signs of stress, restlessness, sleeplessness, loss of appetite, increase of appetite, increased alcohol consumption, increased use of drugs. That's all symptomology that a counselor is going to be looking for to make a diagnosis. I'm sure you want to address it.
I would just want to say one thing. I was a student of Miss Carla's class. It was a wonderful class, and the whole staff of Shea Hope did go, because we have a lot of issues that come to the shelter where somebody will say, oh, I think she's got some mental problems and things like that. So Ms. Carla was able to educate us on what signs to look for and when to go to and find a licensed professional. So it is a great class if anyone needs to take that.
Okay, first off, I'm going to say something that may, make all of us think. I think all of us are just a little bit mentally unstable. Okay, that's number one. If you want to believe it, a lot, yeah. If you want to believe it or not. So, what we use as therapists, what we use in the profession, LPCs, psychiatrists, psychologists, because we all know that those vary a little bit in terms of education or whatever. But we use something that's called the DSM-5. And basically, there are a number of things that can make an individual mentally unstable. One of the things that we are all familiar with, we've all heard this in the community, that this person is chemically imbalanced. And two of the main things that we have in our brains, are you guys familiar with serotonin? Are we familiar with dopamine? What is serotonin? Serotonin is that feel-good thing, right? That thing that allows us to be right there in the middle and feel good about life and have happiness and all of those sorts of things. So that is one of the things that we look at. What I look at, all therapists, we have that DSM, that's our Bible, but the main thing that I look at are environmental factors that may contribute to somebody being mentally unstable. Because there's a concept in the field of psychology that's called nature versus nurture. And I firmly believe that if you can work with young people, or if you can work with anybody, and if you can change their environment, and if you can change the way that they see things, I think ultimately you can get that person to change or get to where they want to be in life. But the DSM is our Bible. That's what we use to diagnose. But there are some of us who believe in a concept of nature versus nurture, and I definitely believe in nurture.
So as far as mental instability, and as Travis so nicely put it, we are all just one incident away from what can break us and what cannot. And so what makes it diagnosable is how we are maintaining. Some of us can put on a facade and we can function daily, and you don't even know where that person is at. They could not be functioning in their household in the evening, and you not even know what's going on behind closed doors. And you think that person might be mentally stable. You know, we've all seen a news article and say, oh, I never would have known this, or I didn't know this was going to happen. And so it's not like one definition. We do use the DSM-5 to diagnose. It's not just the characteristics, but it's how it's interfering in their ability to take care of themselves. Has it interfered in their ability to raise their children, in their ability to maintain a relationship, in their ability to have a job? What we're learning a lot more, and we're looking a lot more, just like Travis hit on, is what we call the Asus Study. It's adverse childhood circumstances, and it is those environmental factors. And changing the way that we look at those environmental factors. If you come from an older generation, then you know we were taught to be, I say we, I know I fall in the middle category, but we were taught to be resilient, to deal with it, that's the way that life is. But we're looking at how some of those situations that we wouldn't have considered traumatic really were traumatic, and depending on when they happened and how they happened, changed the perspective and the way that our brains format it or perceive or look at different things. And so that triggers the way that we process and we deal with things, which can trigger depression and anxiety and how we handle certain things. We're also on a really big drug epidemic, and so we also have to look at that co-occurring factor and whether drugs have come into play either at a younger age or at an older age and changed the flow of our brain chemicals. The whole synthetic epidemic has caused some irreversible damage, and the healing process and being able to, it's not the same as a regular mental health disorder, and so we're battling things that we don't even have research to keep up on.
Well, if I could interject for the seniors here, okay? You're right. We were raised different, okay? And it's very hard right now for my seniors to adjust to what's going on in the world because we talk to each other. We respected our parents. We respected our teachers. And we dealt with it, okay? Yeah, we cried. And we might go outside and fisticuff with somebody, but we didn't pull a gun, okay? But the thing is, right now, all of this is so new to the seniors. So what are they doing? They're isolating themselves. They're very depressed. They're scared to death. They don't know how to deal with it because they don't know who to talk to. And the best thing is just talk, not use the video, not face whatever you do, text message, I don't even know all those languages, but just, and I'm looking at my good friend out there, he's smiling at me. Sometimes when you're down, just call somebody up and tell them, come, give me a hug, and we'll talk about it. And that right now is doing more for the seniors because they do not understand this younger generation, and it's a sad state of affairs that they're not having respect for the elders and listening to us.
I'd like to just add something to Ms. Beverly's comments. Ms. Beverly, it's not just the seniors that don't understand. Okay. I think all of us are struggling to understand what's happening socially with not only our youth, but with us in general. And yes, we are all experiencing some level of mental instability. Research has shown that as the result of the pandemic and other social issues that are going on, we are all experiencing some level of trauma. Everyone. it's very, very difficult to find someone that's not being affected by that. And we are experiencing sort of like a derealization where, as Ms. Beverly said, this is new. We don't have a frame of reference to process what's happening to us. And I think we go into our baser instincts, which is protect myself and alienate everyone else, because that is at least the safest way to deal. So if I put up the wall, at least I know I'm protecting myself and my own and my family, and I can't really let anybody else in because I don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. And that's what leads to the isolation and the separation and the alienation. We don't trust the people around us to know. We don't trust that they're like us. We don't trust that they believe in the same things as we do. We don't trust that they value the same things. And so we're just constantly setting ourselves apart just a little more, a little more, and a little more. And that's what's trickling down to our children. I also wanted to add one more thing, that there's been, yes, a huge increase in drug use during the pandemic and in light of the social issues that we've been dealing with. But I think the invisible monster in the room is also alcoholism. We absolutely have a drug problem. We absolutely know that, and we can identify it. But I am telling you that there are 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds who are alcoholics right now. And that is the thing that people don't talk about, particularly in a culture like ours, where we, plan social activities around alcohol, and we allow our children to consume alcohol at younger ages than maybe many other cultures. I think that, and I will tell you this, that I have argued at the state level with Louisiana Department of Health, with the Office of Public Health. I have literally gone down the yellow pages and pleaded with physicians to prescribe medication for alcoholism the same way that they do for opioid addiction, and they won't do it. And so I believe this is where, if you want to know where your voice is needed, that's one of the places. Because if you have an alcoholic in your home or in your family, you need to go to your doctor and get them to explain to you why they won't write that prescription. Where if they were addicted to oxycodone, you could get it like that. And alcoholism is being as destructive, if not more destructive, in our families.
Thank you all so much. As we continue on tonight, coming back to you, Ms. Bagwell, we have the alternative school here in St. Mary Parish. What percentage of students are really being helped, and how long do they have to be there until they are allowed to return back to the normal school setting?
So to determine how many kids are actually being helped, you would have to probably most likely look at the recidivism rate of kids that return to the alternative school after their initial placement. We have put into the alternative school several protocols, because really the goal is to transition the child back to their regular setting successfully. So that means whatever time they're spending at the alternative school, they're working on the content that they were assigned to when they were in their regular classroom. Once they return to the regular classroom, they should be able to pick up and move on and graduate on time. That's success. That they don't return to the alternative school, that they go back to the high school or they go back to the junior high, and they are able to fit back in and carry on and progress as they normally would have. In terms of the time frame of placement, that really depends on the incident that got them placed in the alternative school to begin with. Some of that is dictated by law. Most commonly, our students are in the alternative program for roughly 45 days, and then they're returned back, they're transitioned back into the regular school setting.
So while we are there on school, how do you feel about arming teachers with handguns in the classroom to protect the lives of their students?
I think teachers went to school to teach and care for students. I think that teachers' primary goal is to educate, care, safeguard their kids. I don't know of many teachers who are trained to carry firearms. I think that that would just add a whole other layer of responsibility to them in the classroom. I don't want to get into politics too deeply in my own personal opinion, but I can just tell you that even as a superintendent, as assistant superintendent, as school board president, we went to school to be teachers. We went to school because we loved kids, and we still care about our kids, even though they're 50 years old right now. So arming a teacher is not going to be, to me, the best placement of security for a classroom, because they're there for a reason, and they're not policemen. They're not military. They're there to be educators.
And just like you guys have the metal detector at the door, are you thinking about, as far as school buses are concerned, about something as that?
We do have the handheld metal detectors that could be used on a bus. Yeah, those are transportable.
Thank you so much. Back to mental health. Why is mental health being used as an escape for people who commit crimes?
I think I understand that question. And I think what that question is intended to ask is somehow maybe addressing insanity pleas. I'm only guessing, because that question can have more than one meaning. I am not an attorney, and I am not going to engage in a conversation about the legal use of an insanity plea. That is something for an attorney. I will say this: any licensed mental health professional who is ethical and moral is going to diagnose a mentally ill person as such. That is separate and apart from what the law enforcement and judicial systems do with that information. I think it's very dangerous when we blend those two issues together. A mentally ill person is mentally ill. Whether or not they can be held accountable for a criminal action is for a judge and an attorney to determine. I'm sure you want to say something.
I agree with everything that she said. I think that if a person has been diagnosed with a mental illness, that person has that mental illness, whatever that professional has diagnosed them with. And again, it's up to the judge and the jury to decide what they're going to, how they're going to punish that person. So what we do our job, and then you have the judicial system who's also responsible for doing their job as well.
I definitely agree with what she said, and I also think we need a little education. I would be lying if I quoted the year, but years ago they got rid of what we called institutionalization, and so all of your state hospitals closed. And state hospitals were facilities where if someone had a serious mental illness, they could live there. If the family could not care for them, this institution cared for them. And they made sure they had medication every day, and they had medication when they were supposed to have it. And they passed legislation and said this is no longer humane, and they have the best chance at a better life if they are in our communities. And all of these hospitals closed, and they closed very rapidly. And so we no longer have any of these facilities. The problem is some of these patients had the best care and the best life in these facilities. And now the only chance at long-term health care for severe mental illness are patients in forensic jail hospitals. Okay? So now these patients are left in the care of their family members who lack education, resources, and ability to give them adequate care. Is it an excuse? It's not. But unfortunately, they end up in our jails, in and out of our jails, because they're left to their own accord, or they're on the streets, or people are scared of them, or all of these things. So yes, their mental illness ends up creating problematic behaviors that could otherwise be maintained if they had stability with their mental health disorders. The problem with an outpatient basis, which most of our facilities are, is that we can't force anything on anyone because they're human and they have rights. And most people also don't understand that. They have a right to receive treatment, they have a right to reject treatment. And we cannot enforce that, and we cannot force medication on anyone. And so with that gap in care and that gap in treatment, we're kind of stuck. And so I think that maybe that answers some of that too.
And I think, just to add another piece to it, I think that especially in our culture, we have accepted all of the physical ailments that people have. We understand high blood pressure. We understand if an individual has cancer or diabetes or any of those sorts of things. But because a mental illness is something that we can't see, a lot of us will just, oh, that person's crazy, that person has this, that person has that. So I think that we have to get to a point, you know, especially in our communities, where we say, hey, mental illness is something that's real. And I know that living in a small rural community such as Patterson and all of the other areas that surround us, I don't think we've gotten there as a whole. Not saying everybody, but it's just not something that we've accepted as a whole. And we have to understand that bipolar is real. Depression is real. Schizophrenia is real. Those things are as real as an individual who has high blood pressure or diabetes. And when we see something on the news, we can't just say, oh, this person is crazy, or this person, because we don't understand it. It's just as real as any other physical issue.
And Travis said real, but it's not just getting rid of the stigma, but it's also the recovery is real. We keep saying normalizing it, but we also got to normalize the recovery process. It is a process. You're going to have to miss work. You're going to have to make appointments. You're going to have to do these processes. And that recovery is a process. And there's setbacks, and there's side effects, and there's things that happen. And that recovery process is also normal and happens. And we have to normalize that process too. It's not like a magic wand and something happens overnight.
Thank you. Someone else? Okay.
The only way to change the processes that are going on right now in the elimination of the hospitals and institutions is calling your legislatures. Each one of you call your legislatures. You let them know what your concern is, and they can address it when they go to the Capitol. But that's where it has to start. It has to start from each one of us taking responsibility and letting them know what we want changed.
Thank you all. As we continue on, because we can really stay there for a moment, this is for a social service school board question here. What services are available for a child with dyslexia?
So every child by statute has to be screened for dyslexia within the first few years of school. Those dyslexic screenings continue as a child moves up through to the third grade. Once a child is shown to have characteristics of dyslexia, because that's what the screener does. The screener doesn't say that 100% this child is dyslexic. It just screens for characteristics. If a child is shown to have characteristics of dyslexia, then they're sent on for further screening, and accommodations can be made for that child that fit that particular form of dyslexia or dysgraphia, depending on what they have. Simple things like changing colors, putting a color overlay over a piece of paper helps dyslexics. So it just depends on what their particular characteristics are, and it's individualized to that child.
Anyone from social service?
I'll add that even on the collegiate level, we do offer those services as well. If someone self-discloses, we do have an Office of Disability Services, and those students are given the opportunity to receive any accommodations or modifications that are prescribed in their plan. So we do offer those services as well for students on the collegiate level.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to share?
This is just to provide some additional information to the people out there. Nichols State University is a phenomenal university. I graduated from Nichols like 2 or 3 times, and they do have one of the only dyslexic programs, I believe, in the United States. Whereas if you have a kid who's, a family member who's getting ready to finish with high school and they need that service, Nichols State, about 30 miles down the road, they offer that. And it's a fantastic university, and they'll take care of you over there. So that's just another option that you have if you have a kid who has dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, or they need service. And I believe all they have to do is if they have an IEP from high school, that IEP can also be used on a collegiate level. Yes.
Anyone else? That's it. Okay, as we continue on, this here, vaping has become a big problem. What do you have in place to prevent the vaping on school campus? And what are the consequences for a student that is caught vaping on school campus? I just want to share that a while back I had about 4 students that were vaping on the school bus. And what they did was, only thing they did was gave them in-school suspension, and they also was able to ride the bus to school, and for 3 days, and right after that, they were back on the bus like nothing happened. So, well, that has to, that's now we can answer the question. It has become a big problem.
So vaping follows the same policy as tobacco. They are one and the same in school systems. So this year, our discipline committee actually made some adjustments to the punishment for vaping. It still does include the suspension of a student for in school and suspension requirements to actually be in school, which is why they continue to ride the bus. The other thing that has to happen with a student who's caught vaping is they have to go through a kind of a education program to talk about the dangers of vaping. Vaping is not something that the school system alone can prevent or end. When a student gets on the bus and is vaping on a bus, they brought the vape from home. We can screen the kids through a metal detector once they get to school, but they left home. We're checking their bag when they got to school. We need the parents to check their bag before they left home. We need the parents to partner with us to monitor the health and well-being of that child, because vaping's not just about a discipline infraction. It actually is dangerous to the child. And we've had kids that reported that they cannot stop, and they're 12. So I saw where the FDA voted to disallow Juul from selling vaping products, and then that was halted, paused for further litigation. But we need to be on top of a child, not just telling him why vaping's bad or why it's unhealthy, but preventing them from accessing the vapes, preventing them from using them, period. We do have, vaping monitors. They are out there for sale. Unfortunately, you can't get them. because of shipping delays. But again, that's reactive. That's something after the child already is vaping. We need to do something on the front end to prevent it from happening completely. Both tobacco and vaping products are not to be sold except to a child who's 20 or to a person who's 21 or over. That to me would be another area that could maybe prevent some of this. I'll tell you, on the school level, it is a continuous challenge, but they come to school with vapes. So again, I can't implore parents enough. Check your child's school bag. We're checking their school bag when they get to us. Check your child's school bag before they leave home. These things can be hidden anywhere and everywhere, I promise you. And I would prefer not to be the person that has to explain to you that your child is vaping. I would prefer that you find out in your discussions and your monitoring of your child.
So I should have said when I introduced myself that I'm also the coordinator of the smoking cessation services at Tesh Action Clinic. So this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. Tesh Action Clinic has engaged very aggressively with education at the community level and in schools to educate about the hazards of course, tobacco, but also vaping. And we have participated in various student programs, one of them being the Next Era program, whereby we solicit the participation of students on campus, and they become ambassadors, and we engage in various activities to educate the student population about the dangers of vaping. In the particular school that I was in, the school administration was doing a very good job of educating student population about the dangers of vaping. There were a lot of visuals on the wall, and the group of students that I worked with were very passionate about recording messages that we posted to social media, talking about the dangers of vaping. And it's important to have those conversations with your children to help them understand that they are being targeted purposefully, and that they are really just a wonderful market for these companies, because you know the vapes are coming in all of the fantastic flavors, and they smell wonderful, and it's like a dessert. And so I agree with Dr. Bagwell that these are conversations that do have to begin at home. And for parents, I have had conversations with parents who have said, well, you know, if they got to do something, I'd prefer that they'd vape instead of smoking, because smoking is so much more dangerous. But I will say this to you. So if you want to know what it's like to vape, I want you to take an entire pack of 20 cigarettes, put a rubber band around them, light them, and put that in your mouth, and smoke all 20 of them at the same time. That is what your child is doing when they vape. So you need to have conversations with them. And that physical thing, I do that with kids. So we do take 20 cigarettes and put a rubber band around them. And of course, I can't light them in their presence, but I tell them, if I light these and put that in your mouth and say, inhale, that's what you're doing when you're vape. Well then, oh my goodness, and now I understand, because I have a visual to go with that. It is not a safer option, and absolutely advocacy at every opportunity, every chance that you get to advocate against getting all of that off of the shelves. Do that. Lend your voice and let people know we don't want that anywhere. We don't want the smoke shop. We don't want the vape shop. We don't want the tobacco shop. We need to get rid of all of the flavors and use your voice for advocacy.
Okay. All right, as we can.
You did it, girl. No. Oh. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's continue on. Time is moving fast. All right, so social services question here this evening. What programs do you have in place for single mothers or single fathers that would help them to be better parents?
We offer what is called a STEP curriculum. I teach the class personally myself. We go through like maybe an 8-step program where we show the parents how to be better parents. We show them how to be advocates for their children. And most parents don't understand you have rights. So you're the advocate for your child. You need to begin to speak up for your child and speak up for yourself. Even though you're sending your children to school, to Head Start, to the different places, you have a voice and you need to begin to use your voice for good to advocate for your child's education. So some of the parents do not understand the things that are available to help them with their parenting skills. You know, they think, okay, I had this kid or whatever, okay, I'm gonna play with him a little while, you know, we're gonna do a little this or do a little that. And then we have parents who are confused about discipline. A lot of people don't believe in spanking, they believe it's corporal punishment, and then some people go to this extreme or that extreme. But you can teach the parents how to use conflict resolution. You can teach the parents, just like we teach our children, use your words. Some parents need to learn how to use their words as well. So what our STEP program does is it helps our parents to see parenting in a different light. Sometimes, you know, parents don't know the different things, like I said, that are available to them. And I think someone said it earlier on this panel. Some people don't know the community resources and things that are available to them. And the mental issues that they're talking about, we have so many parents who were stressed out because of COVID. They don't understand that it's okay to go have mental counseling. It's okay to tell somebody that I'm not okay. So these are the things that we teach the parents. You know, if you're stressed out, if something is going on with you, get some help. It's okay to get help. And then some people, like I said, go to the extreme where, oh, I don't need help. And they pretend like nothing is going on in their world. But if you have a situation, if you're struggling with something as a parent, don't take it out on the child. And one of the things that I tell the parent, if you are having a problem in the house, the child got a problem. If you have a financial problem, the child got a financial problem. Because you're upset, you're stressed, you're taking it out on the cat, you're taking it out on the dog, the fish, the child, everything and everybody in the house. And what we don't understand is children have feelings, y'all. And they equate your feelings as being, oh, mommy is mad with me. No, mommy is not mad with you. Mommy is upset about a situation that's going on with mommy. And we need to give our children this opportunity to express themselves. We think, oh, just go sit down, child. Go sit down. You don't understand what's going on. Yes, they do. I can tell you, as a teacher of 33 years plus, little children understand more than what we think they understand. And they have feelings, y'all. So just like we want the children to respect us as adults, we need to start respecting the children.
I'd like to add to that. So I'd like to say that I am also a certified educator in active parenting. And active parenting is just a model. And it is a curriculum that does essentially the same thing. And so we take parents through various skills, listening, disciplining, establishing some type of relationship, and there's interaction, there's role play involved. And so I left a handout with the mental health first aid flyer that also has my business card on it. So if anyone is interested in me hosting a parenting class, depending on the amount of interest and the number of people, it would be feasible for me to be able to do that. It is a 6-week commitment, but every time I've had the class, I've had almost 100% of the parents there to say that it very much changed the way they viewed their relationship with their child. It changed their view of their child as an independent being, and they learned some skills to be a better parent. So the question was, is there a fee? I think that I might be able to work out something where there would not be a fee. My goal is always for there not to be a fee, or for there to be a very nominal fee. So we're not talking about anything that, you know, is very expensive at all. Oh, yeah.
Before you answer, I've got a question. I know I'm the oddball up here, okay? What do you how do you help grandparents trying to raise children now? Because we were raised different. The kids have different likes, dislikes. They don't believe, what was it I saw on TV? Standing them in the corner didn't work, so we used a paddle. Well, yeah, I got paddles used on me, and I'm still here, okay? But we're running into this so much is grandparents are now substituting for absent or lack of other parenting. Who wants to answer that?
Well, I'm just going to say this, that at the clinic with our children that we see, there is a large population of children that are coming in with grandparents or other more mature family members, whether it be an aunt, an uncle, much older sister. And those are some of the things that are addressed in family therapy. So the child may be the one that's referred for a particular behavior problem, but ultimately a good therapist is going to bring in that caregiver and discuss some of the barriers that you're talking about. So generational barriers and difference in communication and ideas about discipline and how to deal with this, you know, technologically advanced generation. So those are things that can come up in therapy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to add. I know we've all had a situation, or we've had a story where we've maybe had an individual in our lives who was maybe addicted to a drug or struggled in a certain area. And what happens? This individual, they left that area and now they're doing fantastic, right? So sometimes it's all about the environment in which you're placed. So I think that it's counterproductive for me to counsel a kid and then I send him back into that environment, and then nothing in that environment has changed. So one of the things that we do at 360 is we have skill-based programs, and we also do play therapy. Play therapy is something where we could just have a board game, and if that family's struggling with communication, it's something as simple as a Monopoly game. Now I'll have the mother, now I'll have the other siblings, and myself as a therapist, I can intervene whenever I see something that's not, you know, proper communication, and I can help them with that. So you always want to include the entire family and all key stakeholders in that individual's life in order for them to change, because if we continuously send them back into those environments where nothing has changed, then, you know, it's not going to work.
I just wanted to add that Nichols also had the Family Resource Center. they have parenting sessions they do, and they do in different locations. So they would even come, they used to do some in Morgan City, different locations. It's one of those things that unless you get referred to it a lot of times, you don't know that they do exist in your community. But child services and family services, a lot of times once you become in their care, they'll refer you to them. And they're usually free through the Family Resource Center at Nichols. So they do have family parenting sessions, and they work with the kids and the parents separate, and then they bring them together to actually work with them on that. And Travis is very much correct. Oftentimes we want someone to get help and to get better, but just with all the issues we're presenting today, the school issues and all the questions that are being presented, nothing is singular. It's a community problem. Everything snowballs, and one thing affects the next, and it takes everybody working together for those things to come together and for those things to change. All of these issues, it can't be the school that fixes our children. It can't be a mental health facility that fixes the mental health problem or the substance abuse problem, and it can't be the cops that gets the crimes off the streets. We have a community problem, and we have to come together.
Thank you so much. It's almost a time for us to get to the questions from the audience, but we have one more for you, Ms. Bagwell, and that was, why are those students allowed to ride the bus instead of making the parents bring them and signing them in like they were doing before? As far as the vaping was concerned.
Oh, for in-school suspension?
Yeah.
We're required to provide students transportation to school, and it's now the in-school suspension is literally in school. It's not a separate center. Then we're required to provide transportation for those students. So the only other caveat to that would be like a bus referral, where a student might be suspended actually from the bus for a period of time.
Okay, thank you so much. It's about 7 o'clock. We have about 30 more minutes left. We're right on schedule. And now at this time, we're going to begin to have the audience questions. I'm going to need your help, I think. So, are you going to bring that to us? Okay, yeah, you're good. You're good, I think I heard you.
No?
Yeah.
Do we have any cards in the audience? Have anybody any questions on cards first? Okay, so we don't have any cards. Anybody with questions?
Yes, my question is for the superintendent. I noticed that she answered the vape question. My question at the very end is, what the solution would be. I didn't really hear a solution with the exception of getting parents more involved, which I know we all can agree. I think parents nowadays could be a lot more involved with their children's education, their lifestyle, everything. In regards to the drug epidemic, there was a principal of a local school and former COC member who stated that what took place at Morgan City Junior High was criminal. We've had a mayor say what happened at Morgan City Junior High was unlawful. There were possibly hundreds of vapes confiscated by the previous principal, but never reported to local law enforcement as lawfully required. There was also a possible threat to the lives of the students that was not only not reported, but possibly not taken care of as it should have been at the school, and subsequently local law enforcement had to drop the case. Seeing how the vape and Juul epidemic is hindering our principals in being able to do their jobs, how would our schools move forward to enforce their already in place drug-free zones when there seems to be a see nothing, say nothing hidden policy in place?
So I think the solution is probably multifaceted, which is why it can't be singularly answered by the superintendent or by the parent, for that matter, of the child. As a school system, we are required to follow statute, we are required to follow law, and we're required to follow school board policy. Our school board policy does not allow for the arrest of a child who has a vape or who has tobacco, for that matter, because they are one and the same policy. As far as Morgan City Junior High, I can unequivocally respond to your hundreds of vapes to say that that is not true. That is obviously some kind of speculation that was provided along the way to someone. We run referral reports every year as a district, as a school, and those referral reports are used to make responses for duty schedules or what have you. The referral report was presented during our Safety School Summit with local law enforcement, and that referral report showed that the vaping referrals and incidences were actually not excessive as compared to what is being promulgated on Facebook.
If they're not being reported, then they would be lower. I'd understand that. And speculation in regards to perhaps one of the investigating officers.
But every person, every educator, everyone on campus is required to report an incident of an infraction of a disciplinary nature. So if that person witnessed that, they are mandated to report that so that the school system can respond and can find solutions for those problems.
So you're saying that it's lawfully supposed to be reported by the principal if he or she confiscates these vapes at any time during the school year?
The principal doesn't report a confiscation because they're the ones that actually conducted the discipline.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Mark Griffin. I am the interim police chief of Morgan City Police Department. My question is, how do you think we should handle if we take and arrest someone and the first words out of their mouth was that they have mental issues? We in turn, in the court system that we have in the city of Morgan City, the judge will make a recommendation that they go and seek mental help before they get out of jail. How can we get this enforced to where they quit using it not as a crutch, but as a way to bypass the system itself?
So the jurisdiction changes between city and parish, and so Morgan City is a little bit different. But the statutes state that they do have access to health care while they are in city custody. And so most parish jails already have contracts for mental health care, so they can get access to whoever they contract with. For example, St. Mary Parish contracts, I'm not sure if that contract is still the same, but under the previous sheriff, it was somebody out of Texas. Assumption Parish contracts through St. Mary Mental Health. So different agencies contract through different facilities. Sometimes when there's a single case agreement with Chittimacha or Patterson, they will contact local agencies. So with that being stated, there's two things. If there's an immediate, if the judge is ordering it, then you've got to contract. Either you've got to work out a memorandum of understanding with your local agencies, either Tesh Action Clinic, St. Mary Behavioral Health. Those memorandums of understanding start with your parish councils. They start with your judges. Those things have to be written out, so that way you have a memorandum of understanding and a workflow of how those patients can come in and be evaluated in a quicker route. Because most facilities already have those things set up. Those are, I can tell you for Morgan City, one's been written up, it's just never been looked at. So those are things that most parishes have operating ones already. And so the judge has discretion if they want them evaluated before they're released or not. He has that right on how he sets that, unfortunately. If they are sometimes they might be patients at other facilities. Those are things that you could also request their records. Some facilities will send medical records requests to your local facilities to see what medicines they're on while they're in their care, so that way they can get them their medicines while they're in their facility. I've seen that happen. And then they just get their medicines while they're incarcerated rather than getting them a visit so they can restart their medicines while they're in there. It depends on what you have access to care, because it's a multi-faceted question. Some people have more access, some people have access to physicians and nurses, and some places don't.
Okay, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback on that just a little bit, because we get a lot of calls from family members and also from the parish facility and city facilities. And we have this person, he's been arrested, and you know, the family is claiming that he has some mental health issues and should be on medication, and we don't know what to do. I'm usually the person that takes that up and tries to do some legwork with that. The very first thing that I do is get on the phone. So I need to identify all the key players. Who's involved? So do I need to talk to the warden at the parish facility? Do I need to contact someone at the city jail? I need to get with the family member to find out, has he had previous care? Is he on medication? And then somehow make a bridge between all of those. So let me say this, that those few words that I just strung together is sometimes a 3-day proposition. That can sometimes be 3 days, because I have to reach everybody, speak to everybody, explain what's going on, and solicit their help. Access was the critical word in what she said. Sometimes, just depending on who picks up the phone, I can make things happen. And sometimes it's just not the right day and it's not the right person, and I can't make anything happen. And so I would love to engage in memorandums of understanding and memorandums of agreement to talk about access. So let's talk about authorization to release information. So I have a family member who's saying, I know he had psychiatric help and he used to be on medication. Where were they? I don't know. What hospital? I don't know. Who was the doctor? I don't know. What are the medicines? I don't know. Okay, let me see if I can call, and I need to get some information from the prisoner, because maybe he can tell me. No, that's not going to happen, because that's just not how the system works. And I'm an outsider, and so there's only so many buttons that I can push to make somebody say, yeah, we can arrange to get some information from the prisoner himself. Okay.
Thank you.
It's time for the playing and everything to stop. Realistically, we have a problem across the nation. Active shooter. I heard law enforcement say they have a plan. We have all of you, and thank you all so very much. Ms. Vappy, Travis, I mean, my chest is poking out. I mean, you're passionate about what you're doing. Ms. Vappy, all of you, you have actually touched my heart. You've enlightened, and you gave us some. Every week we learn different things. But as a mayor, Duval is here. I don't think no one has came to a mayor and vice versa, chief of police and so forth, to discuss active shooter. You all are getting ready to go back to school. I taught school. That was the worst thing I ever went through at Patterson High School. It's a horrible experience. But I find we do it once or a couple of times. Are you prepared, Ms. Bagwell? Are you prepared? Have you met with the mayors? Have you met with all of the entities? Because contrary to what I heard 2 weeks ago from law enforcement, Angela Boyles is sitting there, and Holden. We go to a lot of risk management trainings, and I know I have law enforcement here, and I know with Miles going to school, if something happens, I'm going in that school. I don't give a damn what happens. But however, risk management says our locals are to assess and wait for those that are actually trained. I heard law enforcement say 2 weeks ago, we have a plan. I bet if not tomorrow, if I asked to go to all the officers right now, let me see your active shooters plan. It's not time for playing. It is not time for poking your chest out and boasting. This is real. Do you have a plan?
Okay.
And this is not just for you, Ms. Bagwell. This is for Ms. Bappy. She's at a health place, whereas Tesh Action have about 100 people in there at one time. You're at the vocational school called Ms. Moore. You got principals, law enforcement. Do we have a plan? I can tell you right now, and as I just said, no one has contacted me. But if something happens in Patterson, I'm the one who have to answer.
So let me start with this. For the last, gosh, I don't even know how many years, we have an annual school safety summit that all law enforcement is invited to attend and oftentimes present at the school safety summit information about trends that they're seeing, you know, out in the public and that type of thing, and to share with our administrators that kind of information. That happens right after school's out. It happened in June. We had representatives from Berwick PD. We had representatives from Sheriff's Office. They did a couple of presentations. That's kind of where the partnership begins, along with school resource officers. When you say prepared, it seems like every time that there's an active shooter incident, people learn a lesson from it. So that means that they weren't totally prepared prior to that. Our school system, our school board has allocated over $2 million to provide every school with a dual entry system. Now, the dual entry system is a buzzer, 2 sets of doors. All it does is it delays someone from being able to get into the student population. As educators, we are not armed. We are not going to stop someone with a rapid fire weapon. What we do is we act to contact those people who are trained to take on an active shooter. We have active shooter drills that take place in all of our schools to help law enforcement prepare for such situations, but also to get to know the schools. After Columbine, I was a teacher during Columbine. After Columbine, Morgan City PD came in and they went through the entire school, looked for every nook and cranny in the entire school so that they would know where someone might hide. For example, under the stage. Are there things that we need to do to improve? Absolutely, there always will be. Because with, unfortunately, every active shooter incident, the sheriff's office, police departments, school officials learned something new that they should have maybe put into place before, or had no idea that was ever even a consideration. So while we've done things like metal detectors that students go through every day when they come into school, whether it's the dual entry system, whether it's the buzzed entry, all of those things are done to provide protection. But to say that we can 100% protect from every type of weaponry that someone might have access to, I don't know of any community building, business, school, police department, anything that's ready for that. Maybe I'm wrong. But we do have a system in place to partner with local law enforcement and to meet with them every year and to get information from them and to share information. I don't know if that answers your question, Mayor Grogan.
We don't have a plan. But once again, we don't have a plan. But however, from this night on, from this day on, we need to start the dialogue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
sorry. One of the suggestions that I would like to make, Mayor, is that if we look at a lot of the kids who've been responsible for these school shootings, what do we find out in the end? That particular individual has had some type of mental diagnosis, right? Would you guys all agree that if we could come up with some type of plan to where we can have all of the different agencies, maybe have a conversation with administrators, and we can kind of pinpoint and target certain kids who may have an issue, where we can reach out to them and provide them with a service? You know, if you look at a lot of the kids who end up doing this, they're not the popular kids, they're the loners, they're the kids who can really benefit from having some type of service. So I think that's something, you know, everybody, we all have a part to do. Dr. Bagwell has her part. Law enforcement has their part, and we also have a part to play as well. So I think that's something that we can do from the mental health standpoint of view, and the social services side is to, you know, go into the schools, maybe have a seminar where we're in there with all of our pamphlets and with everything that we need, and we can even have the parents come out, open house, here we are, here's what we provide, where we can kind of target some of those kids so we can provide them with the services before that. That's a proactive way of going about the situation, in my opinion.
The shooter has had a history that people in the school system knew, the kids or the teachers. They did know that this student had a problem and it would be overlooked or nothing was done. So we don't want that happening in St. Mary Parish. We don't want it happening anywhere, but not where our children are. So please have a plan for that, and let's not overlook it.
Well,
do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. Well, okay, because I wear so many hats, but the teacher side of me is that when you walk through my classroom door, there's a no bully policy. I don't tolerate that in my classroom. So I don't know, maybe as educators, we have to be firm in our approach to how we basically classroom management. You know, if I see that a kid is being teased or bullied, that's not going to happen in my classroom. You know, and I'll also have a situation to where, as if I see a child, he or she is down, and I can tell that something's going on, come over here to my desk, let's talk about it. We're going to investigate, and I'll pull all of those kids in, and we fix it. You know, and that's an approach that we can also take as educators to kind of, you know, do what we need to do.
Correct. I agree with everything that y'all saying. What would it be, how hard would it be to have a therapist on payroll? They could go from different schools and sit back and evaluate all these problems that we're having and try to make a solution to it. The next problem that I have is, you talk about a safety summit meeting that only 2 agencies out of 5 were involved in. I can tell you myself, we were never invited, ever. I don't know if Patterson was invited. The only 2 I know is the Sheriff's Office and Berwick PD. All I ask is that we're all invited. Let us all speak our mind.
Well, and obviously you should have been invited, and I'm sorry that you weren't. I was not aware that you weren't invited until just this moment. I know Morgan City PD has participated in the past, as have other departments, but thank you for letting me know that. I will tell you this, on the therapist side, we do have licensed counselors. We also have social workers that are available to the schools. The other thing that we did this year is we partnered with a group called Care Solace. They are a referral service that parents or educators can reach out to, and they will refer for counseling services children who need those. So that's one other layer that we have that we added this year.
Okay, my name is Herbert Bell, Mayor Pro Tem of Baldwin, Louisiana. I have a question for Ms. Bagwell. Over at one of the schools I drive to, I noticed the security guard is at the gate in the morning, then he leaves and go to do custodian work. I would like to know what plan is implemented for security around St. Mary Parish schools this year.
So we do not have security guards at every school. We have administrators and teachers on duty during the entrance of all the students into the school. So the security guard is provided only to a couple of schools that I know of for sure. And those positions have kind of been mitigated to within the building responsibilities and not at the outer gate.
Howard Castay with KBZE. I have a question for Dr. Bagwell. Could you walk me through the process if any one of our police chiefs have concrete evidence that's been called into their station that a student has a weapon and has entered the school, and the chief has called your school to tell you that he has concrete evidence that a student has entered the building with a weapon. Could you walk us through the process of how that would be handled on your end?
Well, first of all, we'd have to find out where the student was. If they're in a classroom, is it during passing period? Is it at lunchtime where there's a large group of students around? I would hope that he would also inform the SRO, but the school would inform the SROs to come there as well. We would safeguard the students depending on where they are. We have drills that the schools participate in throughout the year multiple times.
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, he has called your school and has named the student, and the student is there with a weapon. Is he going to be allowed into the school immediately? Is he going to be allowed in with 2 or 3 men immediately?
You talking about the police?
Yes, or is he going to be stopped at the front door and said, no, you need to call Dr. Bagwell?
No, the police would be allowed in immediately.
And then what would happen? He would meet with the principal and say, XYZ student is in your class with a weapon?
Well, I would assume that the police would need to get some information from the administrator as far as the location of the student.
Okay. All right.
Because even in the interim, even if they knew the location of the student when the call came in the time that it took them to get from the police station to the school, the student may have moved.
Okay. I'd like to backtrack real quick on the subject of vaping and smoking. Is there a problem with vaping in St. Mary Parish schools?
I think there's a problem with vaping in the community in general.
No, in St. Mary Parish schools.
I think you'd have to define what problem is, but if you look at...
No. Are students vaping during the day in classes on St. Mary Parish school grounds? Is there a problem with that?
There is incidences of students who have been disciplined for vaping. The location of those incidences, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
Because I didn't read every referral.
Okay, well, how would you define discipline? Disciplined?
If there was so I would define any discipline incident as a problem if it overarches the other discipline infractions according to the data.
Okay.
And vaping does not.
Let me be a little bit more definitive.
That doesn't mean that it's not a concern.
Let me be a little bit more definitive. I get a press release probably once a week saying juveniles were arrested for fighting. I never get a press release that says juveniles were arrested for vaping. Why is that?
Because we don't arrest students for vaping, just like we don't arrest them for tobacco.
Okay.
That's not our policy.
Okay, so when they're disciplined, does that mean they're expelled, they get sent home 2 or 3 days, or what?
It depends on the number of infractions that they've had for vaping.
Okay.
So if it's the first one, it's a suspension. If it's a second one, it's more days in suspension. And if it's third, it goes beyond that.
All right, thank you.
You have about a minute or so for your question.
Okay. Well, first I have a statement. The Louisiana Department of Education, I have it in the St. Mary Parish Parents Unite files that you can file a bullying form for yourself. You can also file a witness statement for yourself, and you can find it on the website. You can mail it into the school with a return read receipt, and you can also mail it to the Louisiana Department of Health the Louisiana Education Department if you don't feel like it's being done. My question to you, Ms. Teresa, can we get a commitment from you that you will meet with our parish sheriffs and police departments to ensure that we will have some type of plan in case things like this do happen, that we can feel safe with our children, that they'll be well taken care of in a situation like this? And I think that our police department has the best form of action for that you can meet with them.
I've actually already reached out to Mayor Duval Arthur to schedule a meeting with him, the police chief, and Mr. Henry. Mr. Griffin and I actually talk often, but we definitely have good relationships with our law enforcement agencies. We absolutely work through our SROs and with the municipal police departments to ensure the safety and security of our students. That's our job.
Ms. Bagwell, I don't mean to be, I want to ask a question. Why only Berwick? Why only Berwick when we have the different, police chiefs and officers from the other
Right,
places?
and that's why I mentioned Morgan City and Patterson. The reason I reached out to Mr. Duval Arthur is because Mr. Henry was at the School Safety Summit, and he brought up some points at the Safety Summit that I wanted to follow up on.
But we meet once a month. The mayors meet once a month. We never disclose that to anybody. Now, it's a pure slap in the face. The mayors meet with you at the chapel line for a luncheon sponsored by the parish. It's the first time I ever heard about it. And it's a slap in my face to hear you spoke with Duval. I'm not going to cut no corners. I love you. I respect you. But right is right and wrong is wrong. So you have basically, just like Berwick, and I hate to say it, but it's on a funny note, Berwick has all of the top graduates and everything, so everybody goes to Berwick. I'm a mayor elected by the people, same as Duval. And I think the respect is given, should have been given to all of us. Duval doesn't speak for me. Duval problems are not the same as Patterson. My problems are not the same as Lee. They're not the same as Eugene and Frazier. But we all need to be at the table.
And so, Mayor Grogan, I will tell you, I agree that you all needed to be at the School Safety Summit. Every municipality should have been there. And for them not to be invited, they should have been. As far as the mayor's luncheon is concerned, as you know, sometimes I don't get to go because it's on board meeting day. The reason I reached out to Mr. Duval is because Mr. Henry was at the School Safety Summit. He brought up some concerns that he had personally, and so I wanted to follow up with him. But in regards to all the cities, you definitely need to all be involved. We all are equally committed to our school system. And so having a second session where everyone is invited, where everyone receives a special invitation, where everyone knows when and where it is absolutely needed. I don't know if that responds to your question, but absolutely, we want you all involved.
I want to address some of this stuff here. In the past, Morgan City PD has taken part in the summit. Y'all actually did active shooter at Patterson High School. So they have taken part in it. Now, why you haven't taken part in it recently, I really can't say. I took part in it when I was a Homeland Security person. And I got speakers a lot of times for them, for their summit. I think all the chiefs of police should, with their mayor, should be at that Safe School Summit, because this active shooter program is a very dangerous program. And we're just lucky that we haven't had that here. When you look at what happened in Uvalde, I understand, right? Yeah. What happened in Uvalde, there was a lot of police mistakes there, a lot of mistakes. They didn't act like they should have acted. They didn't do what they should have done. And as a result of that, so many people got killed. And I'm not going to get into all the mistakes that they made, but there was a lot. But these officers for your departments all train so that they can respond, and they know what's going to be counted upon them to do, which is defuse that shooter. And they know that. And you don't have a lot of protection when you're the first officer at that location. Your job is to go in that school and take down that person. That's your job. Whether you're by yourself, whether you got just a pistol, maybe you forgot to wear your bulletproof vest that day. Bad day. But anyway, I agree with having all the chiefs and the mayors at the future safety coalitions, Ms. Teresa. And she did call me about making to have a meeting so that we could talk about that. She did do that here recently. And our chief was supposed to get back with you and give you a couple of dates that we could meet. I wasn't at the Safe Schools Coalition either, so, my officers were there, but I wasn't. But I can see that there's a lot of feelings about this. It's important that we have feelings about this. It's important that we talk about things like this. It is. I don't think anybody is going to mind getting their toes stepped on about something like this. Maybe it'll correct us and make us all work together. Mm-hmm. So thank you all, because this is just part of it. I heard a lot of good things from the group up there. I want to mention something that's a bone of contention with me. It's on the mental health issue. Somebody goes out and commits a crime, you get them to jail, and you realize when you got them in jail, one flew over the cuckoo nest. So you try to find out what's going on with them, call parents, call up a loved one, a wife, or whoever, somebody that they're associated with. They said, well, they're supposed to be taking his medicine. Is he taking his medicine? They don't even know. If that's one of my loved ones, I had a brother-in-law that lived with me, my wife's brother, that had mental illness. I made sure every damn morning he took his medication, because it's important. If he doesn't, one flew over the cuckoo nest. He ended up one day, didn't take his medicine, walked out in front of a car at the foot of the Morgan City Bridge, he got hit and killed because he didn't take his medication. I feel guilty about that. But anyway, getting back to the thing with the weapons. This kid at that school at Uvalde, Travis, you're exactly right. This kid was sending out all the ways that I got a problem. Something was going on with that kid. Either he was getting picked on, bullied, or something was going on there. To bring on the anger for someone like this at that age, and to work as hard as he did at McDonald's, to go out and spend all the money that he got in buying weapons to go do what he did. That's a lot of anger. It's a lot of anger. And somebody at that school should have sensed upon that and called somebody, because that case right there was certainly one that could have been avoided. So let's work hard on that. That kid should have never been able to buy a gun. He should have been going for treatment, and that would have not allowed him to purchase a gun, so it would have never happened. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Colleen Askew. I am a former teacher, 17 years. My daughter is now a teacher in the school system, and I still have one son. And as a former pre-K teacher, it was always my biggest fear because I had my para. And we did all these drills with 24-year-olds. Seriously. And we all discussed it. I had 3 different paras. If something happens, we're telling them to run. This is not realistic, y'all. The drills and stand in line and you get a mark when you talk in line when it's a drill. Like, it was ridiculous. And I can say it now because I'm not a teacher. But I'm a mom, and I'm also on the council, and I'm a mom of a teacher who is not enjoying her job that much, and she should be. When I started teaching, I loved my job. But this was my thing. Right when I quit. I didn't retire. I didn't have enough years. I had enough. Of 4-year-olds. I had that responsibility laid on me every single day, and it terrified me. And my paras, all 3 of them have quit and moved on. That's not the point I'm trying to make. Then they started with the buzzers and all this, well, let's build something up. Okay, my classroom, all you have to do is simply climb the fence, and you're in. And if the child goes to the school, y'all, they know all these things. They know they can stay home one day because their stomach hurts and mom's gonna let them because she doesn't want to be bothered. And they're gonna grab their gun and they're gonna go around the back. And here they are in your classroom. And then what do? What is that plan? That terrifies me. I've told my senior at Berwick High School, if something happens, I don't care what your teacher says, what your principal says, or what the superintendent says. You run your butt out of there. You break down every door to help other people, and you run. That's my plan for my child. I don't believe that these buzzers, y'all go to school all the time, and they barely buzz me in, and I don't even have to say my name. I can put my hand over it. It's ridiculous. I get it. It's an effort. But seriously, I could literally walk around the corner and climb the fence. Or walk, I was terrified. I was in the old building at Berwick Elementary. Y'all familiar? All you have to do is climb that little fence right there, and you're in the building. And then what do? My door was right there. What was I supposed to do with 20 children if a shooter came in? I wasn't trained. And look, I'm not saying I wanted to carry a gun, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if they were threatening these 20 children that I'm responsible for, and I did have a gun, I would probably have to use it. I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying my child is still in school, and I'm terrified that he's gonna be hindered to get the heck out of there. What is the plan when that child that loses it, as he was saying, or flew out the cuckoo's nest, and he says, well, this is so stupid. I'm not gonna go in the buzzer. I'm just gonna go around the school. They can go on the field at the high school. There is no buzzer at the field when they go to PE. What is the plan? You're not answering it clearly. I'm sorry, Ms. Teresa. I've been knowing you all my life, but
it's okay.
I'm a parent.
So let me just tell you this. So lessons learned from Uvalde and other situations. 2 things. Entry doors to the school, there needs to be a single point of entry or a double point of entry, both of which are monitored. So the student who went into the school went in an unlocked door, open door, right? All of those entries should be secure, so that when a child is outside of the building, they should not be able to re-enter unless through the buzzed entry, or if there's an adult who leads them out and leads them back in with a key. So you have to secure the building. The second thing is, all of those classroom doors need to be locked and closed. So when you're in the classroom with your students, you should be in there secure.
my door, that kid on the fence with a gun, and then you got, I mean, I'm just, what is the
Right, but my point is that when students enter the building, they should all go through the metal detector first. So any student, if they're leaving to go out for PE, they're going to the track and they're coming back, they should be under the direction of that teacher who's monitoring them coming out and going back in. There shouldn't be an unlocked door where just any random person can walk in. Now, all of that's well and good, but we know that all of that also has to be monitored throughout the day, because there is a chance that somebody leaves the door ajar. There is a chance that even when you go out the door doesn't shut that way. So those need to be checked. There are a litany of things that we need to be better, more vigilant at as we go through our school day and as we prepare for an upcoming new school year. And unfortunately, we learn lessons from the outcome of events like what happened in Texas.
And I respect everything you're saying. I just don't understand, like, when I, as a teacher, I've taught for 17 years, when I line my kids up, and we had to walk all the way to the cafeteria outside, and they had to walk all the way to, I don't know, wherever it is, you're still exposed outside, and that fence is right there, all the way around the school. The fence is not protecting. The fence is not protecting anyone.
I see
So what do
what
I
you're saying.
do?
You're
What
worried about
does
when
that
they're out.
teacher do? Yeah,
You're worried about
absolutely.
when they're outside.
What are the plans? Just what?
Yeah, we're not. Our schools are not fortresses. We don't have cement walls
Well, I'm just
around us to
asking what
protect.
the plan would be. What do you
protect
advise a
anybody.
teacher to do in this situation?
Well, so the plan is, as soon as someone was cited, then law enforcement would be contacted.
Can we contact them now, though? Can we get them together to devise a plan for the schools under their advisement to help us to stay?
And yes, the answer to that is absolutely yes. That's the purpose of our annual meetings.
Okay, I just want to state this real quick as far as vaping. Yes, there is a vaping problem in the school. You're not going to really solve the vaping problem by checking the backpacks. Why? Because the kids are not keeping the vapes in the backpacks. How do I know this? Teacher and student relationship. You have to get relationships. The students are bringing the vapes in on their bodies. They're not putting the vapes in their backsacks. So would the parents and the teachers just know this? No, they probably wouldn't if you don't have a relationship with the student. The next thing is disciplinary in the schools, and I want to ask you, Dr. Bagwell, and I'm just going to say this in a very flat term, the students are off the chain. Do we have a system this year where we're not going to play patty cake with the kids and they're going to have consequences to their actions? And the reason that I ask you this is because I had a student that clearly told me, well, he cut up 30 minutes of the 51 minutes or whatever, and when I addressed it, told me to get up off of his blankety blank. Then the next day when you call roll and that student is sitting in your class, that's an insult. It also gives the other students a reason to behave that way because they feel, well, like if he can do it, I can do it. So they go to the office, nothing really happens too much, they have a little talk with them. The next day they're back in your class. Then you find out the reason that they're not, well, the first day you're so mad you don't even want to ask anybody why he's back in your class. You got to first get over that. And then when you do ask it, you find out, well, there's a waiting list for detention because the detention room is the size of a closet. This is unreal. The parents have to also be made responsible. If you have a student that cut up 5 days a week in the class, the parents should have to come to the school or keep the student home because you have students that want to learn. You know, there has to be a better system. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous.
You know, when you have students that's able to do that. Another thing is, just real fast, so when you have student and teacher relationship, you want to know, well, what's the reason this student is cutting up? You know, is there a diagnosis? You know, so you go, you read the students, their little paperwork, and you find out, hey, this kid has a diagnosis, you know, this child is on medicine, whatever. So you have a teacher-student talk. Well, my mama don't give me the medicine, she don't like the way it make me feel. Well, mom's not at school all day when you cutting up and carrying on, and the teacher can't teach the other students. So then the parent, if you don't want to give the student the medicine, can y'all make it mandatory for the parents to have to drop the medicine to the school? Because I can assure you, the school nurse will give it to the student, and everybody will have a better day in class.
So unfortunately, no, we cannot mandate for a parent to bring the medicine to the school nurse for the school nurse to dispense. In regards to specific discipline infractions and following the punishment protocol for that infraction, those things absolutely can be reinforced to administrators, but I will tell you this, if you have a specific incident where you didn't feel like it was followed and you followed up with the administrator to see, you know, why wasn't the student punished the way the infraction denotes that they should be punished, then you can continue to follow up with not only the administrator, but to the supervisor that oversees your school.
I'm Assistant Police Chief J.P. Henry from Berwick, for those of y'all that don't know me. I'm going to address a couple of things about the active shooter situation right quick. I can speak probably on behalf of all these law enforcement guys that are here today. We got a plan. I'm going to let y'all know. Right now, we all have a plan, just to be clear, from a law enforcement standpoint. I mean, Dr. Bagwell knows that. I did speak at the Safe School Summit, and she knows that I voiced opinions from the law enforcement standpoint as to what things we need to change. You know, when I say that, I mean all of us, we need to change. But to answer the questions about the active shooter, if there's a plan, I'm not going to sit here and share our plan with y'all, because that's not for you guys to know what our plan is. That's just me, as far as from a law enforcement standpoint. It's not for nobody's information here to know that what our plan is, because if y'all know my plan, then the kids are going to know my plan. Does that make sense? So just to let y'all know, we do have a plan. All these officers that are in here today, we have a plan at Berwick PD. I know Morgan City PD has a plan. I know the Sheriff's Office has a plan. I know Chief Grogan and them have a plan. We have plans in place. If that situation happens, we train, and we only hope we're going to jump into action. And unfortunately, one of us is going to die. You know, we're the only probably employment in the country that trains to die. You know, that's just a fact. So we know that when we enter these schools, there's a chance that we're going to die. You know, I used to explain it to my family that if one of these situations occur, there's a possibility I'm not coming home, because I'm going in, I'm going to save whoever I can save, and like Mayor Arthur said, diffuse the situation. I'm going to be straight up blunt. We're going to kill somebody. We're going to kill that person that's in that school that's taking other people's lives. I'm going to be real. Okay? So that's just how it's going to be. I just wanted to address that and let y'all know we do have a plan from the law enforcement standpoint. And I know I can speak on behalf of all these other chiefs here and Chief Deputy Driscoll.
Julia, can I say something? I hear everyone talking about the school. What about us as bus operators? No one has mentioned that yet, and we're the first ones that they see. They get on the bus. They get on the bus with us, and we bring them. So what is the plans as far as bus operators are concerned? Because now, with everything that's going on, you know, our back is to them. You know what I'm saying? We are driving. We can't continue to look in the mirror, but what's happening for us? Because you know what I'm saying? We're the first one to see them. Once they leave the houses, they come on the bus. And I don't know if it's going to be the mesh bags again or whatever the case may be, but those bags are covered, so we don't know what they got in them. I'm just asking.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much. I do want St. Mary Parish, all of you to know you're being monitored. St. Landry is mimicking basically what we've been doing. St. James, all the mayors are calling in and they're commending, I don't need to stand up, they're commending St. Mary Parish. Dr. Bagwell, let me tell you, you were not placed in the hot seat. Only thing I'm saying is, and this is for all of us, we take our weaknesses and we build upon them. No one was here to attack the school system, and all the other agencies and so forth. Teresa, I want you to personally know you were not targeted, but however, it was just steered that way. We have our assistant superintendent here, Rachel. I've worked with her. I would ask that the school board utilize her and use her. She was at the alternative school. She could have spoken about the alternative school. Actually there. I taught at the alternative school. Okay? So, to all of you, thank you so very much. The continuation will be on the July 11th, because next week is the 4th of July. So July 11th, it will be the faith base. It will be the spiritual part of all of this. So, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot just from tonight. Just from tonight to understand the mental point. And I know all of y'all are saying, well, he's probably going to speak on about being threatened. No, I'm not. Because I serve a God that's protecting me.
That's right. Amen.
And I'll tell you this, the family of the young man reached out to me, and I told him there's nothing against the young kid, because when there's a sickness, but it also goes back to learn that sickness was identified in the elementary school. So therefore, TD, what you're saying, a tracking mechanism, but where does HIPAA come in? Because you can't really identify a group or a person with a disability. When I was in the school system, they told us that they wore black coats, black lipstick, black nails, fingernails. I'm telling you, it ain't been long ago now, Rachel, that we were looking out for those things. But we can't, you can't, I don't think the school system can, but when you look at this young man that threatened me, this has been going on for years. I got 3 threats. 1 nobody knew about. And these people live across the street. 1 year of torment. 1 year every week, every day. But as a young kid, it was noticeable. It was there. What happened? We'll close out. Does anybody want, Ms. Vappy, you're wearing many hats. You're looking at the fact, shouldn't something happen? Should have happened. The education system should have notified the mental health and...
So the question that you're asking, unfortunately, is so complicated and does not have a single answer. But I will say this, that I think the gap in what you're looking for is the lack of resources. And so when we hear in the news that the federal government is going to, devote millions of dollars to mental health, what does that really mean? So it means that could there be a universal health record that is available across all systems, medical, mental, law enforcement, so that we could see professionals who have understand HIPAA privacy practices, but that we can see a record. That is worthwhile. Lack of resources. Could we get Medicare and Medicaid to reimburse agencies at a realistic level any mental health professional, whether licensed or certified, at a reasonable level? Why don't practitioners want to take Medicare and Medicaid patients? Because the reimbursement is not always attractive. That's where our money needs to go. We need mobile crisis units. There are no longer any state hospitals. There is no longer long-term psychiatric care. But it would be really nice if law enforcement, when they get out to a call, and it is a mental health crisis, that there is a mobile crisis unit to call that can be activated right then and provide crisis care and have crisis housing. That's where money needs to go. We need more clinics. We need health insurances not to be able to charge co-pays for mental health care. That's how money needs to be spent. If we could fill in all of those gaps, I feel certain that somewhere along the way, that young man would have been able to be connected to the services he needs. And as far as the school system, yes, it would be nice for them to have more funding so that they do not have a social worker or a school psychologist, but that they actually have a mental health team that actually can do mental health counseling as opposed to special education evaluations. That's a funding issue. And if money is going to go in for mental health care, it needs to go there. I think every school building, every school campus needs to have a school-based health center on it. All of them. A clinic with a mental health provider and a medical team on site. That's where the money needs to be spent. And it's those ideas that we have to communicate to our senators and our representatives when they're saying, we're going to just give out some money. Well, no, we have some specific places we want the money to go.
All right, and in closing, I want to give, we're closing, correct, Mayor? I want to give a big thanks to Mayor Grogan and his staff, amen, for putting on such an event. Amen, let's give them a hand. I wanted to make sure I did that before we close. Go ahead, man, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Y'all can hear me. I just wanted to add, I think that, until we can get a big, in the grand scheme of things, I think one thing that we can do, all of us, if we work for an agency, I know every year since I've been a teacher, we send home newsletters, we send home a whole packet of information that our students have to take to their parents during that first week. And a lot of parents just don't know the resources that we have that are available. So working from our agency, if I'm allowed to, it's like Matt Grogan said, you have HIPAA, you have confidentiality, you have so many laws out there that may prohibit me from saying, hey, I think this kid needs this service. So by just basically generalizing it, sending all kids home with some type of packet, letting them know what services are out there, and maybe the parent can now assess and say, I think that my child can benefit from social services, and that kind of takes it out of the school and the teacher's hand at that point, and then the parent is able to, do what they need to do with whatever agency they choose to go with it.
I'd like to add that this information wouldn't be sent out in the first week of school because parents already have so much information that they're going through. Like after they're in there for 4 weeks, then start sending out some information with resources. To me, that would be much better, and the parents are more likely to absorb it because when you're bombarded with all these papers, you're just looking where your signature needs to go, and then you're going from there. So too much information at one time, even though it's good, may not be helpful to the parents.
All right, don't forget to join us on July 11th. It's going to be faith-based right here at the Patterson Civic Center at 6 p.m. Until then, be blessed.